Hello and welcome to the special edition of Arlington Public News. I'm Brenda Mahoney.
And I'm James Milan. Welcome indeed. Join us as we look back on the big stories of the year just passed.
From school and housing growth to Pokémon and a spot on Boston TV, it all happened in Arlington. We present to you the stories of 2016.
You can see that by 2025, we're expecting to see over 1,600 students.
We want to have a comfortable place that people can come, easily accessible, and right now the current situation doesn't fit that bill.
The Pokémon Go craze that's sweeping the nation has officially hit the town of Arlington.
The Regent for a night was transformed into a time capsule of a golden past.
Welcome to APN's Arlington Stories of 2016.
One of the overriding themes this past year, James, was could be seen as growth.
That's right, Brenda. Growth in our population, in our schools, and in our housing.
That's right. And because of that, a lot of decisions were made regarding school expansion and how to pay for it. Here's a look back at the beginning of that debate in January 2016. School committee member Jennifer Suss admitted to those gathered at the school enrollment meeting she's had to reframe her thinking. The school overcrowding is a challenge, not a crisis.
And it's really a challenge in both the worst and also the best sense of the term. Many of the options that we're considering involve changing the present model in some way. And that is why it's so important to hear your thoughts, your concerns, and your questions.
Before breaking out into groups, School Superintendent Kathleen Bodie went over the numbers. Elementary schools growing now and concentrated in East Arlington, and the middle and high schools running out of space down the line.
Here is the middle school. Again, you can see that it's been, up and down, but not seriously so. But starting this year, 2015 to 2020, we're going to see an uptick of about 200 students, and then in the next 5 years, another 100 students. This is the high school. You can see that by 2025, we're expecting to see over 1,600 students. And very likely, if we move forward with the high school, we may see more students than predicted.
With those numbers in mind, participants went to work in a visioning exercise meant to determine what the town values most about its schools. Neighborhood schools and small class sizes coming out on top. When it came to specifics on how to keep those values in light of the growth is where concerns came in.
Some other issues that came up is, again, this willingness to pay for the things that we want for our children and not split up the elementary schools. And the fact that modulars, while okay on a short-term basis, are not a permanent solution for a long-term problem.
We saw some difference of opinion, to put it mildly, in the Gibbs question. I mean, we saw a lot of people who felt that it needed to be an educational facility, only something for the Arlington Public Schools to operate, and others who felt that the way it is now is excellent value to the towns. Our groups talked about different ways to use space around town. We talked about the crusher lots, which was the wooded area behind the middle school. We talked about building up, not out. We talked about using storefront space and available space that isn't currently being used for anything.
The School Enrollment Task Force will now consider what came out of the meeting. Member Jeff Thielman explaining it's that committee's job to ask the tough questions.
We are tasked with gathering as much information we can about the enrollment situation in the town, analyzing all data, looking at a variety of different options, looking at the costs of those options, and then making a recommendation to town meeting.
The town could then go to voters for a debt exclusion to pay for any school expansion. Officials are hoping the Massachusetts School Board Authority will approve an application for state funds to rebuild the high school. That would help alleviate any costs to the town. That decision is expected January 27th.
Within mere months of the School Enrollment Task Force being formed, a plan was on the books and it was put to voters.
I know, all within just a handful of months. In June, voters approved Proposition 2.5, an override for 4 different school projects, taking back and rebuilding the former Gibbs School for 6th graders, paying for an addition to Thompson Elementary School, and authorizing funds for a feasibility study to rebuild Arlington High School.
Approving funds for a rebuild of Minuteman Vocational Technical High School was also up for a vote. APN held debates here in our studio, hashing out all the issues. And in the end, about 75% of voters were in favor of the debt exclusions for Arlington schools, and funds for Minuteman were approved by 64% of voters.
That's right. So we certainly hashed out those issues, and the end of January 26, end of the year 2016. Everything is in process to go forward to those next stages of actual development.
Yeah, not saying all the hard work's done yet, but
No, or that the overrides are done yet either. Well, another area impacted by population growth was the town's housing stock. Arlington's proximity to Boston and the 128 belt, as well as its accessibility to public transportation, has pressured the town to accommodate more housing.
yeah, the debate lies in what type of housing that should be and where to put it. The town is in the process of approving small-scale affordable housing in a couple of areas. But one place the town is opposed to a new housing development, without a doubt, is on the Mugar property along Route 2.
Oak Tree Development is proposing a 219-unit housing project on 5 acres of land in East Arlington between Thorndike Park and Route 2. The area includes wetlands, which raises concerns about environmental impacts and flooding. The Oak Tree representatives have said they would work to address these issues.
They went before the Zoning Board of Appeals in the fall, stating their case for a permit. But hearings were put on hold in December after the state initially denied the town's assertion that it has reached the minimum threshold for affordable housing based on land area. Meeting that threshold would allow the town to deny Oak Tree's 40B application. Now a final decision will be made by the State Housing Appeals Committee later this year. Residents packed the meeting, including one who believes the state has too much say.
We cannot let the state bully us around. Never. The town has its own rules. The town has its own ways of doing things. We've supported ourselves all this long. We have to say no. We need the selectmen, the ZBA, the Conservation Commission, town meeting members, and all the residents of Arlington to stand with us and deny this applicant on so many means. Please say no to the Mugar development from here on out. Stand with us. Thank you.
Certainly an impassioned plea or opinion really there, and it continues.
One of many, yes.
We will hear about Mugar from the state again later this year in 2017. Well, size and scope of single-family housing was another hot topic this year.
Bylaws were proposed and debated during the annual town meeting that dealt with so-called McMansions. Several articles sought to put a cap on the height and proximity of new homes. After meeting public resistance, the planning department voted no action on their own proposed articles addressing those restrictions. Other similar proposals by citizens were also voted down, and instead, town meeting approved a volunteer zoning recodification group to look further into such proposals.
In addition, the Department of Planning and Community Development hired a consultant firm at the end of the year to overhaul the town zoning bylaw. Refining it a little by little, as it has been each year at the annual town meeting, hasn't been working. So they want to refine it all at once and just kind of do a large overhaul and put that to voters in the spring.
So growth is definitely the theme of the day here. And
That's
you know,
right.
Lots of people have said this is the kind of problem that we want to have as a town, or these are the kinds of problems, because of course means everybody wants to move here,
Right.
or lots of people do.
It's not supposed to be seen so much as a negative thing, but a positive thing. We'll just go through some actual growing pains.
Right, exactly. But there is some pain in there as well as the growing. So.
Right.
Up next, we continue our look at the highly competitive housing market in Arlington.
And later, a look at redevelopment of Massachusetts Avenue in the center and Heights. That and more when we come back. Well, welcome back to Arlington Public News and our year-end special presenting the stories of 2016. Continuing on our theme of growth, James, in the town, APN also took a look at the housing market, which has been red hot for a while, but actually was found to be the tightest that anyone has seen in decades this past year.
Yeah, the average cost of a home also spiked up by $150,000 since 2012.
Amazing.
As you'll see in this next report, the market has been very competitive, to say the least, with bidding wars between individuals and contractors who are looking to flip the homes for a profit.
Beth Kevlis is simply looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home here in Arlington in hopes of moving away from a crowded city. But in today's housing market, her journey to find the perfect two-family home might take a little longer than expected.
Somerville has become really crowded. Somerville was always kind of crowded, but it's a different kind of crowd now. And Arlington still feels kind of like home. There's a mixture of people, and the community is small enough that you can get to know everyone, and you can be involved. I mean, you don't have to be involved, but you can be.
The town of Arlington has changed a lot from its blue-collar days in the 60s and 70s. Working-class, multi-generational households were the norm, and bars and restaurants were sparse. In the 1990s, restaurants began to proliferate as Arlington attracted a wave of young professionals who saw it as a great place to settle down. The housing market dipped during the recession, but has skyrocketed since.
In general, the market right now, for the last 2 years, has been very different than what it has in my previous 28 years. It's the fewest amount of homes we've ever seen on the market. And in fact, for example, right now, there are only 15 single-family homes for sale in the entire town, and there's 11 condominiums.
Traditionally, Arlington has had an average of 50 homes for sale around this time of year and as many as 90, but McKenna says this is no longer the case. The location and affordability of Arlington compared to surrounding towns make it an attractive community for buyers spurred on by low interest rates. As to why there isn't as much supply, McKenna points to homeowners staying put after riding out the recession, many taking advantage of growing home values and adding on to them.
A few things happened. They reduced interest rates 3 times over the course of the past 6 years. So a lot of homeowners refinanced. What that caused them to do was at some point not only lower the payment, but pull out cash. And they decided, we've almost lost our home or we almost lost our job, let's stay where we are. So people renovated it.
Real estate agents are saying that this is a traditional single-family colonial home. Over 100 people attended the first opening house weekend, and with multiple offers, it was sold above the asking price. According to the Massachusetts Association of Realtors, which tracks home sales, the average cost of a single-family home is about $650,000 in Arlington, up from $500,000 in 2012, relatively low compared to other towns in the area. Many of the homes are being flipped, bought by contractors, and then resold.
A lot of smaller homes that are in the right school district or have the right zoning, developers, contractors are bidding against young couples, because they see an opportunity that they can enlarge the home and expand it, because there is a need for a lot of people that are moving into Arlington that they want the bigger home.
Kevlis, on the other hand, doesn't want a bigger home, just something that's within her price range.
My first feeling is that I really wish I decided to move about 3 years ago. But the prices are very high, and I'm seeing houses, single families up in Arlington Heights, in, I guess, what are good school districts, but they're going for 1.4, 1.5, and they seem to be getting their asking price. I would actually prefer something a little bit smaller. My ideal is 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a living room and a dining room, and maybe some storage in the basement.
A tough quest in this market that doesn't show signs of slowing down. I'm Paola Trisnaruda, reporting for Arlington Public News.
Well, amazing to see, and I'm sure the market is still strong. Anecdotally, we can just see how quickly those houses go for sale, and yeah, most of them are, you know, the ranches and capes. They are torn down or made bigger, and it's just very, very competitive here in Arlington.
Well, as an Arlington homeowner, I'm psyched in some ways, but
right?
Absolutely mystified by
Yeah.
the mind-boggling escalation, you know, the inflation of these numbers. Crazy.
Yeah, we've been here before, and we had a bubble. Hopefully, that won't happen this time. It's different reasons for the growth this time around, I suppose. Well, the population growth has also affected economic development, from reworking roadways and businesses, encouraging landlords to fill their buildings.
Both Arlington Center and the Heights formed groups to support those business districts, with one trio of friends even getting the town to set up fees to charge landlords who have long-term vacancies.
The group reports that town officials who have met and are working closely with the 3 landlords responsible for the majority of the vacancies do not believe that the landlords are holding out for mixed-use development. Those meetings, they say, have been mostly productive.
2 of the landlords seem to be very interested in filling the spaces. One of them is looking for space that is not going to conflict with the existing spaces. Another landlord is also interested in filling the spaces, and supposedly there's a lot of people coming in and out of the empty storefronts.
Arlington Heights also saw a community effort to spruce up the business district. The Support Arlington Heights group formed to see how they can improve the area at the intersection of Park and Massachusetts Avenues.
The town showed its support by giving light poles a fresh coat of paint and by formalizing an Arlington Heights neighborhood planning initiative, which is now in the early stages of developing and funding an improvement plan for the Heights. Another large focus area for the town is what's called Mass Ave Phase 2. East Arlington was reconstructed during Mass Ave Phase 1 in 2015. It added bicycle lanes and bump-out sidewalks as a way to make it safer and more business-friendly. So now the town is looking to do the same in the center.
That's right. So the main focus, though, will be on enhancing common areas with a major reworking of Broadway Plaza. Mass Ave Phase 2 envisioning meetings were held in the spring. Here's a look back at that process.
In an effort to create more of a common area in Broadway Plaza, the town is looking to redesign the park as part of a plan to make Arlington Center more welcoming.
If we had, better use of the space and better places for people to sit and enjoy themselves, and also maybe enjoy a performance, see public art, have an informational kiosk.
The Massachusetts Avenue Phase 2 concept plan would remove Broadway Street through the plaza, extend Alton Street to Mass Ave, and add a new parking lot by the Central Fire Station. In turn, some of the veterans' monuments will move onto the newly created green space, with room for other year-round use, as explained by the representatives of the design firm VHB.
But the basic elements are incorporated of flexibility of space, having a placeholder area where you have performance, you might have a pavilion, you might have a water feature, and areas for cafe space. Spill over there's about 5 different restaurants along this edge that could utilize that and really bring a lot of life into the space. And I think you could envision what could take place here spring, summer, fall, winter, as far as having public events.
That's my goal as Director of Veteran Services when we have the outdoor services for Veterans Day, Memorial Day. We want to have a comfortable place that people can come, easily accessible, and right now the current situation doesn't fit that bill.
Whittemore Park and Robbins Library are receiving less sweeping updates. According to the plan, Whittemore will be opened up by thinning trees to make room for bikes and sidewalks. At the same time, some of the sidewalks around Robbins Library and Town Hall Park will need to be narrowed to make room for bike lanes.
It would be potentially adding 2 bike lanes, as well as keeping the travel lanes for cars. But it would mean some changes to the sidewalk and sort of creating a balance between bikes, pedestrians, and cars as well.
In a similar effort to create complete streets, the median strips that divide Mass Ave will be removed. As next steps, the town will submit the final concept plan and start to procure funding. As for now, Arlington planners hope the public will be happy with the idea of increasing common areas.
That's the idea of this plan, is to really enhance those places and make them places that people will really want to be.
Well, this Mass Ave Phase 2 kind of pre-planning process started in the early fall. So they're very early in the development of that, and say that it's only just very preliminary at this point. So a lot more time for input as well.
Yeah, but it looks exciting. It really does.
Yeah.
As somebody who spends a fair amount of time in that part of Arlington Center, I think that these are great improvements.
It would be great to have more defined common areas to come together, like at Whittemore Park for the first lights that they did around the holidays was great to see the community come together for that. So more spaces for that, more well-defined spaces for that, I think is something that the town is thinking of. Well, also in economic news, the town is pumping up its efforts to attract businesses to Arlington. The Department of Planning and Community Development hired a new person, Ellie Carter. She worked with business groups in Brookline in the past, and she plans to collaborate with Arlington's business owners and community groups as well, and work at the same time to increase the town's commercial tax base.
And we also saw parking meters. I'm sure everybody's familiar with that. They came to the center to encourage turnover
you know about them now.
for business patrons, and with longer-term parking offered at a discount at the municipal lots. Another debate in town, whether to license a marijuana dispensary, which was ultimately approved by the redevelopment board.
That's right. It will be going in a multi-use building on Water Street, where some had concerns over its proximity to businesses that children actually went to as well. But the ARB decided that was not within the state's buffer zone parameters. So the ARB's permit stipulates that the facility cannot sell marijuana recreationally, as it is now expected to be legal in the state sometime in 2018. There's been a 6-month extension now, so we'll see.
Yeah. I think it is inevitable that there will be a marijuana dispensary here. Or so it seems. That's the signal. But
medical marijuana,
you can understand,
yes.
right, medical marijuana, but you can understand people's reluctance if their own children are accessing services in that area.
Exactly.
Yeah. Up next, in part 2 of our Stories of 2016 show, we get to the fun stuff.
That's right, James. Did you hear about the goats in town this summer?
Mm-hmm.
They had their work cut out for them.
And the Regent Theater celebrated its centennial. APN brought you there.
That and more in the second half of our year-end show. Next.
Stay with us.